Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the Village of Bellows Falls Trustees Meeting.
Shut this off. Good evening and welcome to the Bellows Falls Village Trustees regular meeting. It's Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, and according to that, 6:01. And for those of you who'd like to know, that clock's working. Woo-hoo. We're down here in the Town Hall Lower Theater. That hasn't worked in, I don't know how long.
It's been a while.
Maybe COVID. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I'm sorry, did we did not get minutes?
April 11th minutes, I don't,
Okay. I don't think I've never seen them, but I could be wrong.
I don't think we have those yet. No.
There's none. So there's no minutes. So we will wait, we will push that off to the next meeting.
Okay,
So move to the main meeting.
yep,
Okay. All right. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that require ratification at future meeting.
no addition, no.
Public comment on items. Is there anybody out there?
In a second, I'm just bringing somebody else into the way.
Okay, wait till they're in here. Anyone here wanted to speak on an item? I usually don't say not on the agenda, but any item, I guess. If no one says yay, then we should go. You have an item?
Let's see.
I have an item.
Yes, go ahead.
Betsy Kirsten, Bellows Falls downtown. So in 2 weeks, I'm gonna probably miss both of you. I'm trying to think. Oh, no, I'll tell select board next week. But May 6th, Saturday is our first Keep VF Beautiful, 9 to noon. We're coinciding with the Green Up Vermont campaign. So I'm gonna grab all the green bags that are left over on Thursday. So we'll have those down, and, you know, focusing on the village, beautifying and all the way that way.
And
So
there'll be,
join us, there'll be food. Feel free to, yeah, if you want to,
where's it gonna be, at the Waypoint site?
no, we're gonna park like right next to the town hall in your
okay.
spot. So don't
Okay.
work on Saturday.
So we
No,
take
I won't.
tables there, right? Yeah.
But yeah, come on by, say hi, and feel free to pick up garbage or do some chalk art and, yeah, whatever else. I've got a whole list of stuff, but just
Great.
wanted to tell everyone the date, May 6th, 9 to noon.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? I see there's people on Zoom. Anyone interested in public comment? Just want to make sure I don't miss anyone. I don't see anyone saying yes. That looks good. Move on then to the manager's report.
So we will have a banner, I believe, talking with Sean, it will be here either the end of this week or the beginning of next.
Okay.
So we'll have it up with plenty of time to provide some advertising for folks for our village meeting and voting. So hopefully we'll see some participation based on that. So you should see that going up hopefully next week. At your various seats, I did leave you a copy of the current Stewart property management application forms for potential residents. So there was a soft opening of the BF Garage project yesterday. As part of that, they are shooting or targeting June 1 for residents for move-in. It certainly looks like they've got a lot of work to do over the next month and a half to meet that target, but they are accepting applications. So I believe that you can get them from the Wyndham Housing Trust website. We'll probably keep some here at Town Hall, and then anybody else can get them from Stewart Property Management. The applications are pretty involved, so if you are going to apply for one of the units, I think you'll have to invest some real time to complete this application. It's fairly substantial.
And it does say each property you wish to apply for requires a separate application. So if you're interested in more than one area, Sackers River, Westminster Canal House, and then the South Street or Bellows Falls Garage, you have to do a separate application. Called photocopy. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. I did notice something, that you probably are already aware. The State of Vermont Agency of Transportation looking at possibly re-signing some of our weight limits on municipal bridges.
Yes,
Is this gonna have an impact on us specifically? Because it doesn't list them, so.
the only thing it might have an impact on is some of the historic bridges, because I think sometimes those have issues with weight restrictions much more than our current bridges. But
Okay.
if the bridge inspection reports, I know the Bridge Street Bridge potentially has some concern just because of some of the maintenance issues with that, but at this point, I don't anticipate we'll see a significant problem, but we'll certainly keep an eye on that.
Okay, thanks. Just figured I'd ask. All right, and moving on to the agenda. Number 1 is the updated design for the canal, for Canal Street.
So this has been a continuing conversation with VHB, who is the design engineers, as well as the select board. I just wanted to bring this back to this board's attention because the first phase of this bridge project will be the Canal Street utilities and burying utilities and preparing other sections here for the crane, which will then be coming in to do the bridge, installing a new pedestrian bridge and the new Depot Street Bridge. So it's a pretty involved project, but we've had quite a bit of conversation along with VHB about how to make the Canal Street area a little more pedestrian friendly, helping to connect to the new pedestrian bridge that'll be there, as well as hopefully to the island, and then extensions if we do get some of the trail money that we talked about, which will extend to a new trail extension that'll carry people out past, hopefully, to past our sewage treatment plant and potentially even out to Paper Mill Road if we're able to get all of the monies that we're looking to secure. So with that in mind, this is the most recent up-to-date design on sidewalk, pedestrian, and then just a very, very basic, not a final, but a very basic potential landscape plan just for the Canal Street portion. There'll be some follow-up meetings with the board about Centennial Park and the parking. So they'll design that piece last, so that won't happen for a while. This piece will go out to bid here fairly soon, because they're going to be starting construction sometime in 2024 on this piece. The other pieces will follow, so we will certainly keep the board informed as to how those design elements are progressing as well. The other thing that I think is going to be very beneficial in this project, and Betsy's here as well, the V-Trans has a communications and outreach person who's going to be working directly with Betsy, and we do have a grant for this, that will be able to provide basically our own website with its own web address. And she'll be working with V-Trans and mostly doing postings, trying to drive people to that website so they can get very up-to-date, very specific information about what's happening with construction, types of disruptions that might be occurring, or just major milestones as we're going through this project. So V-Trans did this when they did a pretty significant project in Middlebury, and it worked very well. It was really helpful to keep the business community informed, to keep the to residential folks informed. It was really, they found a very useful tool. So they're going to do that here as well. So I think we're excited with that opportunity, because this is going to be, as we've talked all along, the construction phases of this project are going to be disruptive. And we're going to do our best, and we're going to try to accommodate people, and hopefully people will be patient as these, this project goes forward. But that's a tool that we're excited that we'll be able to use, because I think, we'll over communicate with people, and that's fine. And people can choose to follow what information they want, but at least all the information will be there, and it'll be readily available on a website, so they don't have to necessarily, they can look at it at whatever their leisure might be. And I think it'll be very beneficial. So we're kind of excited by that, to see how that's going to work as well.
There are questions? Dr. Bridge?
Yeah, notice the, going over this, there was a lot about the trees and the benches and the curb, raising the curb and all that. But I didn't really see anything in reference to lighting or improved lighting to make it, more secure at night, et cetera, and more, aesthetically appealing to match what we have in the square for the current color of lighting, what frequency or.
Right, there will be a lighting plan that'll go with this too.
Okay.
So there will be some additions to this. This is just a really, they need to get these basic street widths and the basic layouts with curb, because then they can start designing the utility relocation piece. That lighting piece will be another piece that'll come.
Yeah, I recall from some previous years, recent with the group from downtown, the sodium vapor color, the orange or yellowish color was preferred. So I hope that they would keep that in mind, or maybe we should have some conversations in the future so that,
They've been
it
designing
blends
most
in.
all of their improvements with LEDs.
Yeah,
In fact, if you've noticed, a lot of the downtown fixtures, we've been converting the old LEDs over time because they're failing. So we have a very old, and it's sort of first generation LED light in our current downtown street lights, and we've been replacing those as they've been failing, quite a few of them. In fact, at one point, we had 25 of this were either out or flickering.
wow.
So we've done about half. We have another, probably we're gonna do another $10,000 worth in probably this year's budget, and then some additional after that. So
There's a streetlight component
Yeah.
on this first map,
it doesn't show the type of fixture.
No, it
show-
doesn't. It's
right,
not
the real
depth,
detail.
but it does detail some of it.
Yeah, there's some detail on here, but it's not complete.
More questions? Wade?
How about, are the power poles that are there now along the canal staying? in the same
No, most of the
area?
utilities are gonna get buried.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
because they need it for the swing radius of the crane.
Yeah.
Which is great, because it'll make that streetscape very different.
There's another layer.
It's gonna be nice when it's done. It's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
Again, we're gonna have to remind people of that. for the next couple
Yes,
of
while they're going through the
years.
pain and suffering, yes.
Just keep holding things up like this. Say, look at this. This is coming.
This is coming. Did you have anything, Wade?
Yeah, that, the website you were just talking about,
Mhm.
is that will be like online even during this first phase? here?
So we secured a domain name that'll be linked to our current website. And it'll be populated hopefully sometime, I don't know when we're gonna start this, May, I think.
My next meeting is with Jim next week.
Right.
Yeah, so
So it'll be online by the time this starts.
Oh,
this
sure.
first-
Oh, well in
Yeah,
advance of that.
definitely.
Oh, yeah, we'll have a bunch of public outreach meetings, as this goes forward, we're gonna need to talk with.
Will there be a printed component to try and drive some people to the website? Because because 100% of us don't use the website all the time. I mean, some of us more than others. And as a way, like I had suggested before, we did with some previous construction from a few years ago, where we put a flyer, an 8.5 by 11 in some of the business windows, in order to give people an idea if they go by or use those, and also to remind the business owners about where they can get the most recent information, current information. It's just a matter of getting more people to the site. That's all.
Yeah,
I will, may I say?
absolutely.
So we have a very extensive property stakeholder resident list that really covers anybody that is gonna be affected anywhere in the designated downtown island. So we have all of their contact information. So we've already kind of started that process. So all of them will be invited to, hey, check it out. It will also have a form on the website that you can fill out your information to then be updated
Added.
and make sure you're on the list. And yeah, and I'll mention that to Jim, so that
Yeah.
paper copies for sure.
I mean, if there's something on the kiosk or something, especially with visitors or whatnot, so they're aware what they're gonna go through too.
Yeah.
Whatever here.
And then just to respond to you, Wade, but yeah, the first stuff is gonna be just history and, kind of celebrating where we've come
Mhm.
and where we are, and then
Right.
it'll transition into this is what's happening next, or
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Be more construction related at
Yeah.
that point, begin to very specific.
So yeah,
stuff.
it is gonna be an exciting project.
Great, thank you. Okay, nothing further?
Nope.
Okay. All right, move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the 2023 paving list. Woo-hoo!
So I wanted to put this in your packages as well, just so this was awarded in a previous select board meeting. I don't have a paving schedule yet. Springfield Paving will be our paver because I'm waiting on the delivery of all of the structures that we need for various streets, catch basins and other items that we're gonna have to do to elevate before we do the final paving. So they're on order. As soon as they give me a delivery date, then we're gonna work with a contractor. I'm guessing it's gonna be sometime in July. It could be even early August, depending upon when their schedule opens up. But as you can see, it's a fairly concentrated area that we're gonna be working through. So we'll do some outreach as we get a schedule for where they're going to be to make sure that we not only let folks know, because they'll obviously be impacted, but then try to jump ahead, depending upon weather. So letting, people know as we move along, what's happening. So,
I read in the select board minutes that you're using the 2019 last survey that showed which ones were the worst condition and so on and so
well,
forth.
we have the 2017 pavement management report. So that was the document
Okay,
that drove the last 5 years worth of decisions. We have a contract now to update that. So we'll have the past 5 years worth of paving as well as then a new projection going forward. So I believe next year is also scheduled to be mostly in the village again.
Any questions for Scott?
3.2 miles. What that equals.
It's a lot of paving.
Paving, that's a lot of.
I didn't know.
Honestly, we weren't sure about pricing and we got a very good price, so I was very happy. So at the next select board meeting, we're gonna talk about adding some of the extra money that would have gone to paving to additional sidewalk so that we could bid out some more sidewalk work. So hopefully that'll be, something we can talk about at a future meeting as well. So kind of excited by that too, because we're a little farther behind on sidewalk maintenance than we are on street paving. So something that we're gonna have to spend some time and energy to try to catch up.
Okay, next item is the tax sale update.
Yep, so this is our list of properties as well as what was paid for town and village. So most of those, as you can tell, it's interesting how when you start sending people legal notices from the attorney about a pending tax sale, all of a sudden there's quite a bit of activity. So there's quite a few, as you can tell,
That weren't on the list.
that were paid prior to the date of the tax sale, but then there were some that were also then sold specifically at tax sale. So all in, it looks like, a little over almost $33,000 in the village and probably another 300 and almost 310 from the town. So
I checked through every one of these just to see what the amounts were compared to what was on the list. And of course, like you said, a lot of them are just people who paid in advance of the tax sales.
Right.
On the list. I noticed that 3 of the properties were recaptured through BFHA. That was interesting. And I did have a couple questions, but I asked Alyssa, I never do.
okay, and I think there's still a couple that are pending for the HFA.
Yeah,
as
because
well.
there were 5, I think, on the list, and
Correct.
there's only 3 on here.
And-
Well, and actually there were, yes, that's correct. But one of them I thought did not pass the muster, I thought. One of those properties.
I don't know that specifically. Alyssa's on, maybe she might be able to answer that because it's a very frustrating process with them. They really don't give us a lot of information. We go for months or weeks and we
Yeah.
email and try to find out. And then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, you'll get this, oh, okay, we're gonna pay X.
So listen, there were 5 BFHA listed properties. And I thought that the last one, 264000001 was denied. But that was the last thing I heard, but that was a month ago.
Yeah, I think anybody that had signed up for VHFA prior to tax sale, at this point, anybody left has been denied. So they'll go back on the tax sale list for next year. And Deb's questions prompted me to look at this earlier. And so there were a couple that I forgot, and one that the columns were messed up, so the totals were wrong. So for payments before tax sale, we got almost $300,000 between town and village. And then sold at tax sale was a little over 63,000. So a little bit better than what these numbers said, but pretty close, but a little off, just because I had a column mixed up.
How many years had lapsed since the prior?
Was it 4 years?
Yeah, I
from
think
the
it's 4.
previous? I think it's 4.
Yeah, I think so.
And there's, the tax sale policy is being looked at right now with the possibility of looking at changing the 2-year window to a 1-year window. So I think that's going to be up for discussion at a future joint board meeting.
There seems to be no rhyme or reason, particularly some communities do them frequently, like every year.
Right.
Some do them sparingly, like us.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what, I mean, I know we just made a decision some years ago that anything under $2,000 did not meet the criteria, and so it didn't match on the list. But as for the frequency, I know there's time involved and money involved, and those are part of the reasons why we don't do them like every 6 months.
I think though, if you look at what happened in this case, I think it does motivate people. It's kind of like the pink sheets for utilities. It's the same sort of thing. It amazes me, you know, but.
Well, and then the properties that don't sell are often ones that are in rough condition. So we're waiting 4 years. They're only going into further disrepair.
It's not
We're
helpful.
losing the revenue, they're
Right.
not selling. So
Yeah.
it's costing far more than we
So,
are trying
so
to.
technically, in the end, we've been better off if we did
Doing it frequently.
do more frequently.
I think so. I think it would probably benefit.
I mean, yes, you have something? Melissa,
I think if you did it every year, you'd have a lot less properties, so the work involved would be a lot less intensive. We had a huge list, and just trying to keep all of that straight and making sure that the information was correct, you know, every few days, just having to go through and well, who paid and who didn't pay. So if you had a list of 10 or 15 rather than 35, I think it would be a much easier to manage project.
And then there's the shame list that turns up in the annual reports, you know, for delinquencies. So whether it's taxes or water and wastewater. I wouldn't like my name to be on the list, so we should get paid.
It was a lot of work, and I did write a note on the.
Yeah, I saw that.
On the summary sheet, I did appreciate Alyssa in the finance office really did a tremendous amount
It's a
of
lot of tracking.
behind the scenes
Great.
work, and I appreciated it because it was a lot. It's tedious, it's very intense because it all has to be, you know,
Right.
has deadlines and requirements and notices, and they did a great job. So we appreciated that with Pam and everyone in the finance office. It
And
was
we
a
do
big
too.
help.
We know it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
it's great.
Next item on the agenda is Bellows Falls Water Consumer Confidence Report and Voluntary Cyanotoxin Monitoring Program.
So just wanted to put a copy of the CCR in. This is our most recent filing. Obviously, it's a public document, so it's available multiple ways. But the other program that we were talking about is the state has reached out to us because they want to start to look at some of these additional problems that are occurring in ponds, and you see it a lot in I'm trying to think of, I guess Spofford Lake has this problem periodically with that toxic algae sort of blooms. So they're trying to track, and this is all over the state, it's not just us, where there might be these problems, especially if, like we do, we have a municipal source that comes from a natural system, a lake. So they're looking at this, they want, so we did sign up to participate, so they'll be going out and doing testing and looking at, I'm hoping when they're done, they'll be able to come back to us and maybe give us report that might give us information as to things we might be able to do to avoid any of this kind of blue-green algae or any of these other problems that are showing up in other, other water bodies. So it's a good way for us to be in the early stages of something that I think eventually we're going to make mandatory anyway. So we might as well participate. Now, to be 100% transparent, we have not had issues in our water. The Myers Pond, for the most part, has pretty good numbers in terms of water quality, even though we've had the manganese problem that we've been talking about and treating, but it's still, we're like any other at-risk natural source. So I think it's a good program for us to participate in, and we'll keep the board informed as we get information from this, as well as, like I said, if there's best practices or things that might come through this as recommendations, we'll certainly let you know about those too.
So the confidence report is always a year behind. It says 2022.
It always is.
So
Yeah, because it takes prior year's data and all of the different,
completed reporting, yeah.
right, all the compilations that are required for reporting. But I think the good news is our actual source is very, very strong, positive. So
this runs, basically, it says here from July through November. I remember, where did I read that?
which are you talking about, the CCR, or are you talking about the testing?
This new algae,
Oh, the new algae program?
Program,
Yeah.
oh,
where did I read that? Oh,
July
July 11th.
11th to November
Yeah.
7th.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
and it's a no cost analysis for this, right?
So,
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Like I said, once we're through this process, we'll make sure we report back and see if there were any findings and any types of other
yeah,
activities. So it's an important thing for, protecting that pond is really important, obviously, for.
So do Ellisbrook and Farbrook feed Miners Barn?
I think they're considered sources, so they'll probably do some testing, I'm guessing, on those as well, just to get a sense of, if there are, I don't know the testing protocols, I haven't even met with us, at this point, so we'll follow up.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is the CDBG Energy Efficiency Grants and Class A Biosolid Program.
So this is one of the brand new sources of funding that came through the federal legislation. And I wanted to highlight a couple things here because there's money nationally and then it comes to each of the states. To me, I think it has some real opportunities for us to produce some additional funding to help us with our, we looked at roughly with the last Aldrich and Elliott report about all of the biosolids handling, all of the flood proofing, the major plant improvements could be upwards of $2 million roughly. I think that was the last number we looked at as a board. If we were able to get 50% by the regular state program, I think that this program might fill a gap because we are, I think, quite frankly, providing, I think, a product and a process that should be supported and ultimately copied, I think, because we're doing a tremendous amount of, by the time you take into account what it costs to load a truck with wet sludge, drive it up to upstate and dump it in the landfill, and then drive that vehicle wherever back. So you're eliminating all that transportation.
We're also reducing the amount of solids that get, the wet solids that get to that dumping ground. So
We're significantly reducing that. And then the product that is being spread on the farm fields, quite frankly, is actually then replacing fertilizer in a lot of cases. So you're also helping to nourish the watershed. So there's lots of benefits to this program. And it's been a little frustrating working with Energy Efficiency Vermont and some of the other traditional funders. They just don't seem to be able to fit us into their boxes. So for whatever reason. So
You're
I
the
think,
poster child for biosolids, come on.
I think it's, a tremendous program, and for a small community like us to be leading the way is really, I think, should be celebrated, and people should be, supporting us 110% on this effort. So this is another way I think we can try to, bridge that gap so that our ratepayers don't necessarily have to pick up some of these capital costs. And I think it's only fair that with this kind of innovation that, there's other ways I think that, this should help be paid for, quite frankly. So this is another program we're gonna try to participate in. It's brand new. So we're just in the very initial stages of it, but I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention as you might need us at a future meeting to do something additional if we're successful getting monies. But I just want to let you guys know we're going to go through the intake process and see if we can try to find some money.
You got
So-
two webinars, I see at the bottom of.
Stuff is, there's, and it's like I said, it's a brand new program, so we're going to learn as we go. I think Gary had a question as well on this one.
Here,
Yeah, is the biosolid storage program part of all of that? Is that-
Yes,
So there's that Long Island Futures Fund that may help, and it also scored, tied for #1 for the trustees participating for,
right.
ARPA. Good with match money there.
Right, so we're really pushing to see if there's ways that we can get this very, I think, environmentally friendly and quite frankly, cutting edge process recognized by, other grant agencies and really get, as opposed to the Bellows Falls ratepayers having to pick up that additional capital expense. I think it's only fair that maybe some of these other opportunities help us to bridge that gap, so.
great. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Has any other questions or concerns? Because it's early on in this.
Very early, so there's more to come.
All right, next item on the agenda is our ARPA project funding review, but of course, we still have two missing respondents. So are we going to move this off to the first May meeting of the month? Does that make sense?
I
What do you
think-
wanna do?
At least we can at least have a conversation. I think Gary took your
Yes,
previous efforts and sort of changed the formatting around so that it was a little, I think, at least easier for everybody to try to come up with their priorities. And he did pick a breakout of numbers so that there was a differentiation, so that you can see if there are a number of people that take the highest priority, that will obviously then have the highest score of all of the different projects. So we really wanted to make sure that your first choices had the highest amount of potential impact. So that's why that scoring matrix was set up that way. And I think it'll help once we get all 5 of you to give us your rankings, to then sit down and talk about how you would like us to go forward with those as, at least as an initial effort to try to focus staff energy and other grant opportunities and lots of other ways that we could try to make these things actually happen. So I know 2024, we at least have to have the funds obligated, and I think it has to be spent by 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So it sounds like a long time, but time flies, and before you know it.
well, VLCT sent out reminders that reporting for ARPA funds is April 30th. That's just for
I
funding.
already
that's been
sent that
spent?
in. I already
Okay,
sent it
you've
in.
already sent it in.
Yeah. So I have to report for both the town and the village.
But what's the report that we haven't done anything yet?
No, I just basically have said that we're still prioritizing, and at
Yeah.
this point, there's been no money. They just want to know how much money's been spent.
Okay, and that's what the
So-
reporting is for. Okay.
So we did meet the, April 30th guidelines for that.
Questions, gentlemen, on anything on here?
No, I think this is a little more user friendly now that he,
It took some tweaking, and I appreciate Gary's, working through on this, because it's been some effort to get that updated.
I have some concerns over the weighting, because I noticed that right now, with 3 of us weighing in out of 5, which is a quorum. by the way. Let's see, that, the biosolids storage program and the boiler fund for grass have the highest score at this point. We haven't decided what we would spend on that program, part of their funding stack. It just says boiler fund, but, I'm just looking at that from that perspective. Nothing else but those 2 items reach that high level of score.
Well,
So,
yeah, I mean, I looked at it and thought you might weigh some of these things differently if you knew that there was a match
Yes.
somewhere. You
okay,
know, that it had the ability to, $100,000 would be matched 2 for 1 or 3 for 1, or that there are other sources that we could
Right.
be utilizing. And
Well,
that-
using your priorities helps us do that too, because then we can
Right.
target Gary's
Having
time
that from
and
the
Betsy's
beginning.
time.
Having that from the beginning might have changed some.
Change the scoring.
Some of the scoring,
Yeah.
but I think we can look at this and analyze it 100 different ways,
Yeah.
and we're never gonna satisfy everybody's needs, so.
so you can sit right here and put your scores in right now. Gary,
Yeah, so since you're doing it a couple of weeks out, we could add a column for that. The challenge is that once, there's so many funding sources, that once you choose it as a priority, we could go after different sources that might not be in the queue at this point. I mean, we could put in a column, here's the sources and is it a $10,000 grant or a $100,000 grant maximum? We could put that kind of information in, if it wouldn't just then make it too complicated to get the scoring done.
might be easier though, of course, if we whittle it down to just generally what we think is the higher scoring projects. And then figuring out how to
And then
distribute it.
have
and
a
then go-
layer with a match.
Yep, that would make
Yeah,
sense.
And are there, like, for the audits, those energy audits, weatherization energy audits, is there a fund to be, is that something that we need to pay for from ARPA, or are there other sources that might be?
Is that for the MERP funds, the ones we were talking about, the 500,000 for the
Yeah,
roof?
yeah, so those are done, they're paid for by the MERP program. We
Oh,
may not be able to get all of the, so the town is eligible for, they'll do at least your top priority, but maybe 2 or 3. Town is eligible for one, the village is eligible, and Saxon's River is eligible, so we'll at least get those buildings. And it has to be those audits to be eligible for,
Right.
and they have to identify the items we want for it to be eligible for the $500,000 that they're funding, which is 100% funding, doesn't even need to be matched.
Right, which is why we wouldn't want to prioritize it here necessarily.
right, because it has
There's
coverage.
another funding source, there's no sense in spending ARPA.
Right.
Although an example is doing the roof here, the total project is $800,000 between the welding that we've done, the trusses that we're adding, the insulation and the solar. So even if we get the 100% $500,000, there's still $300,000 other dollars that we're spending on.
Well, you've applied for it, so when do you know what you received? Do you have to include what we're?
Well, they're
what
being
you're
run
on
through
it?
the regional planning commission, so we've
Uh-huh.
met with the folks that are doing that, and they don't have a schedule yet. So
Okay.
all we did is just say, listen, we want to be as early as you can on your schedule. They know what we want to do, so they're already, we've already notified them, so they're aware. So as soon as they put a schedule together of when they're gonna actually start with these, we'll let you know.
So that's on Wyndham Regional, right?
That's when they're regional. So they're coordinating all the energy efficiency audits as well, I think, as the grant process too.
Right. More questions?
So. Hold on a minute. So when the gatehouse gets a 9 from each of the other 2, it'll get to the 30.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
Take those phone calls tonight, Ray.
With only 2 people to touch base with, yeah?
Right.
It's very possible.
No, I think this is a good move forward with it.
It helps us because, again, we want to try to prioritize what's important to you so that we
Right.
spend the time wisely.
Yeah.
So,
see what direction we're heading in at this time.
Yep.
And like you said, Jeff, the weatherization energy audits might not need to even be on here if we know, or when we know that they're covered by NOSO.
And I think the other thing we can look at too is there are other buildings that we need to have a hard look at, right? So we talked about, especially like our police fire building, because every time those doors roll up, right, all the heat runs out of the building. There are options to capture, you know, in that facility. Same thing with our garages for, you know, our public works stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, there's other ways, I think, you know, we'll have our primaries for sure, but I think there's others that we can look at and see if there's other opportunities to try to, you know, be more efficient on some of our other buildings, just because of the nature of what we do. So,
So in that example, if it's prioritized, there's a weatherization audit, not the states, but it identifies a triage of things that are needed at the building and cost estimates. Ones that you can get from people like Efficiency Vermont or SEPCA. And then you can make those decisions to apply ARPA funds to it to leverage grants. And there's other grants we could go after to help get all of the other, there's a lot more buildings than the MERP will take care of, as Scott indicated. So it's still important to put those in if it's a priority for you.
yep.
If nothing further, we'll move on to the last item on the agenda, which is financials.
Yep. So I do have Alyssa here as well. So if you have any specific questions, I think when you just look at our overall trend, if you just look at where we are, you know, it's roughly the end of April. So we've got roughly 2 more months of the fiscal year. We're still only at roughly 73% of our general fund spending. So we're trending, I think, in a positive direction there. As well as I think we're still in pretty good shape when you look at our utilities as well. Everything is at least trending in terms of current year in a positive cash position. Wastewater has a little bit of a deficit at the moment, but I think that we've talked about some of the things that might be part of that, because I think it's part of the billing, the cycle of the billing, I think. So I think that you'll see some of those on our next iteration should show trending more towards where we think will be slightly above break even in the wastewater, as well as, again, doing very well in the water.
Did have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Jigs isn't here, and he's usually the one person.
We
to jump in.
need a jigs. Who's our appointed jigs tonight?
I got a Jigsy question. too.
Oh, good.
Go ahead.
All right, so there you go.
Let me see. I remember hearing at our last, police negotiation that there's no more governor's highway safety monies. Is that what they said? We're paying for patrols, this sort of thing that we were doing. So I just concerned because we listed as a
No,
$10,000.
They weren't paying, no, it was the task force. Remember, we talked
Ah,
about the
the
TN
task force.
The national, the governor's highway traffic safety grant is still active.
Okay, but
We
we
are
haven't
still
collected
using it.
anything this year.
We've used it only twice so
Yeah.
far. We're gonna try to do some more before the year end. But yeah, the one that we were talking about is the regional task force.
Okay.
That one they have not done for a while.
Page 1 of 7, further down, the health officer reimbursement, we budgeted at 6,600, we received 6,600, but my concern is, since that person is now the interim health officer,
Mhm.
I would expect to see more money here collected in actual, because he's been using more hours for the town than previously done. So how are we being reimbursed for those hours?
Well, it was always pretty much, I thought, a straight sort of participation, and nothing is, at least since our previous administrator left, nothing has changed in relationship to what they're doing. They're only investigating complaints. We're not doing our registry program yet, so for the most part, that's pretty standard of what you had budgeted and what your expectations were for workload, so that really hasn't been adjusted.
Right, but he has, there's at least, there's another 2 months in which he might be used as health officer for town items. Will those be calculated, reimbursed to the village? That was my understanding. It wasn't a flat rate.
I thought it was just a straight reimbursement. I could be wrong, but I thought we just got one check.
Nope, my understanding is it was had to do the number of hours he used for town as opposed to village. What would your guys' take on it? It was a few years ago, so.
Yeah, it's before my time, but,
Yeah, what
but
about you,
I do
Seth?
see, I mean, I do see your point. I mean, currently, they're under a certain
Alyssa, are you
situation.
there?
Stefan says he
Yeah.
was home. You don't remember exactly what it was.
Well, it wasn't that much. It was,
You have access to your
Yeah.
yeah.
detail there? Because I thought it was just a lump sum payment.
Yeah, it is. So the town reimbursed the village $6,600 for the use of the health officer.
So,
Not based on any kind of like casework utilization, it's a straight reimbursement.
we didn't understand, as two trustees who were on the board at the time that was set, we don't understand it that way. Stefan was thinking it was a certain number of hours. He was an assistant health officer at the time.
Right.
Now he's the interim the interim health officer. So instead of using Chuck, who the hell?
Right.
They would use him completely initially, as opposed to as a backup. So that was just it.
Right, whether it was Chuck or Sean, it was always based on a lump sum payment. So if you think that the amount should be adjusted, we could certainly look at that.
Well, I mean, it depends on how much activity how much time he's actually, we don't know that, right?
Right, I don't think it's ever based on activity.
How
I
much
think
Variable year to year.
It would be variable year to year. So I didn't expect it to be a flat
it's been a flat,
6,600.
always been a flat.
I think that's
There must be an agreement somewhere that,
Yeah, Gary, from, I don't know, how long ago?
Can't
was
say
that?
In the minutes, so.
Like a few years ago.
I've never
5
seen,
years ago.
I've never seen an intermunicipal agreement between the
Yeah.
town and the
I
village.
think it's
that
just gonna
lays
be in
that out.
the
I think
minutes
it's
from
a practice.
2019 or
Yeah,
something
practice.
like
I
that.
think it's just a practice.
Well,
I-
I think if you ask the fire chief who's currently doing this,
Yeah.
he, what I remember, he explained this to me once. And I don't really quite remember all the ins and outs of it, but I think he would be a good resource to ask about.
Yeah,
We can do some digging into it to see if there's any kind of policy or adopted position that we'll look it up. I don't know of any, to be honest with you. But we'll try to find something if there is something.
I mean, because he gets paid one way or the other. It's just a matter of how much time the town uses his services. I mean, maybe we're overcharging them. I have no idea.
Yes, Elizabeth.
so we are giving him a portion of what would have been paid to Chuck on a biweekly, like with the payroll. And that's coming out of our budget that Chuck would have been paid out of. So any
All right.
So any extra that he's doing, we're paying him for already. So his extra duties and work isn't coming out of the village.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the 6,600, as far as you know, is just a straight lump sum reimbursement, just. for
Right.
Basic service.
Yes. Because I don't know how we would know how to reimburse for, we might do nothing or he might do a lot. We don't really know.
I think it varies,
I don't want to mess with the thing,
It's
so,
to be available.
yes.
yes, to investigate as needed for.
Right, okay,
problems.
well, that makes more sense. It's not
Yeah.
just this piece.
Okay,
On page 3, this is a small thing, of course, but under the village clerk's office, it says materials and supplies, we had a charge, but no, we have budgeted no money. I'm assuming there will be village clerk needs, I wonder why we never budgeted anything. I mean, right now it's only $10. So I just wondered why we didn't budget anything on that line, just says 0. But occasionally there will be stuff for election years, I think, because I'm thinking the village report's only $1,000. I'm not even sure if that really covers the printing anymore. But on the following page, 3, there's 0 under the budget. That's all. Just a thought, we didn't budget anything.
If I remember right, I think it's because in previous years, it was like $10 or $15. It was so small.
Yeah.
That I just was like, well, I mean, I
Well,
could,
maybe you send them all year to year. so.
Yeah.
okay. Page 5. What's that?
I can't even imagine what that $10
Was for? Let's see.
The pen that you didn't have tonight.
Yeah, right, that pen, yeah.
So
10 bucks.
one pen, yes.
Race forever. It's a space pen.
Okay, you on now?
Page 5. Page 5, under fire office expenses, I noticed it's kind of high, but you know, not that big deal. But more importantly, was the building and contents insurance was 1,883.52%. Maybe Alyssa knows why that is.
So it was budgeted at 200 and it came in at 3767.
Yep, that's why I'm wondering why.
If I'm thinking, I have to look, because I think that this is under,
Maybe there's premium increase there or something?
no, there's another,
I think it was an allocation.
it's listed somewhere else, or it was. Like, it was listed separately for police and fire for building and contents, but the bill doesn't come split, it comes as a whole. But I have to figure out why it was only budgeted at 200, because I don't see another line for the
Would have been
police.
Probably should have been 2,000, I'm guessing. You probably
Yeah.
ended up- Right.
Yeah. I think in previous years, there was insurance under police and then insurance under fire,
Yeah,
and it to kind of like separate whose share was whose,
uh-huh.
but the bill doesn't come separated that way. I'm just trying to find so we put it under the buildings.
Right, which is where it should go, right? It's under building.
Yeah.
And contents.
Yeah, because police has a separate general liability and vehicle covered,
Right.
under there, so. I
But
don't
they're
know.
not in the
We'd have to
building,
look
so.
at it.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that when I go to work tomorrow.
And the last one I had was, under wastewater fund, page 2 of 4. Under other expenditures, the RMI contract services was budgeted at 6,000, but it's 20,105. So I'm wondering why it's like that.
That was when the dryer broke, right? And they had to do a bunch of work or give us a part or something. Do you remember, Scott?
Yeah.
Because I
it
think
was-
Jake has asked about this before, and we had
It's
we had
not
an answer.
just right, it was there was a larger problem that they had to come in and
So
fix.
it's right.
Oh, we had
outside.
the truck. We had the truck.
It was outside of right. So,
Okay. That was it, I guess, except the engineering services, which are 720% at the bottom of that page.
Yep.
Just trying to remember what we spent an extra $12,000 for.
well,
We
that
had
was
to
part of,
we had to do trucking because we couldn't use the dryer.
Okay, during that
Right.
figure, so that's what's in the
Right.
20,000.
Yeah.
that's why they went up.
And our engineering services, what was the most recent thing we had spent more than $2,000 on?
Because we've been working on the asset management update with A&E. That's where we got the $2 million total project cost from working with them on that.
Okay,
So,
got it. All right, that was all my questions. You had something, didn't you?
Well, you hit 2 of them, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to verify back to the general,
okay,
page 1,
yep,
the national opioid settlement,
Oh, yeah,
yes.
the 19, that's what we currently have in the village.
Right, so we've been getting money consistently from the first round of settlements, which was with the manufacturers. Now we're getting it from distributors. And then eventually drugstores as well that we're selling. So there'll be 3 sources of funds eventually coming into that.
is this the first one or 1 and 2?
This would have been 1 and part of 2, not all of 2. So we've pretty much have gotten the manufacturer's first round. We've gotten one round of distributors and there's still another round of manufacturing and another round of distributing in the current budget year. Then they're going to be adding, I think, a third source, which is the retail pharmacy locations that we're selling. So that will continue to grow. Yeah.
And we have, what do we need to do with it?
So a couple of the social services agencies, Parks Place, Turning Point, and are looking to make a proposal to help to do some outreach and some other drug and I think drug reduction education. So they're going to be putting a proposal together. I haven't seen it yet. That's coming through Jen. So once she does that, we'll certainly have her come and talk to the board.
Right, okay. Great. Anything further? You got anything else?
No, that's it.
Yeah. All right, that gets us to the end of the meeting. A review the agenda items for the next meeting. Obviously, the ARPA project funding should be complete and back to us.
Yes.
Anything else that you can think of right now for King and A?
Can't think of the top of my head any specifics.
There'll always be updates on whatever's going on.
Right, we should have, I think, and I'm not sure, Alyssa, when we're getting our village reports. I know that they've had them for a while, the printer.
Thursday.
I'm sorry, did you say Thursday?
Yep.
Oh, look at you.
Woo-hoo.
They'll be ready for Thursday?
They should be here, I think.
Yeah, they're supposed to be delivered on Thursday.
Oh, okay. All right then, that's good. Thank you.
Limited edition, first run.
Which reminds me, I don't know
Thank you for
I'd like to
that.
go with, but the two delegates we have this year should probably take copies to their family, so. and that- So once we have them, let me know, and then if someone's interested, we'll figure it out. I don't even know how to contact Mrs. Lasuko, so we'll figure that out at the time, but thank you. Any review items for the joint board meeting? We've got a few on there already.
I believe, and this is something I wanted to get some guidance from you guys on, is there's been discussion about having a discussion about policing. I don't know what you want me to do in relationship to that. I know it's been discussed at the select board, and I just don't know if you want me to do some background. There's been some just very preliminary conversations about that, and I just, again, I can put it on just as a discussion item.
I think at the town meeting, we indicated that we would be doing that because there was a citizen who specifically.
I know there was there was talk about it. I just don't know what you want.
I think leave it as a discussion item,
Okay.
just, people, if it's on there and people notice it as they're looking at the agenda, they can maybe pull together the material they want to talk about.
Okay,
Citizens can turn up, just discuss it,
right.
that sort of thing. I think would be a good discussion about what basically the future of policing has to change in order to.
There's a lot of factors that are
More
impacting
inclusive,
it.
yeah,
You got the sheriff, you got the DSP. you've
yeah,
got
they're
lots of
all
things.
evolving, what they will and will not do.
The state wants to do regional dispatching for police. There's a lot of things that are in the pot right now.
Yeah. I get to hear about that every couple of weeks, the LCT's constantly giving us updates
Right.
on what they know, but then,
All right, well, that's for
so
sure.
that'll be good.
And we talked with sidewalks on there too?
Talk about sidewalks.
Won't know about sidewalks until the next meeting of the select board when they look at the budgets and
Okay.
and then see if they're gonna add that. So essentially, you have a $35,000 allocation from the current budget year, which is rollover. You have a $35,000 from next year's budget. And we're making a recommendation that they try to add an additional amount to that. So we're hoping to try to get over $100,000 worth of sidewalk work done. over the summer.
170.
So at least be a start. So
Yeah, so if you put that on there, by the end of May, you might,
by the end of May, we'll know.
yeah,
'Cause we're gonna bring it up for discussion at the next select board meeting, so we'll go through that.
okay.
Has there been survey of sidewalks?
There is, and 2019 was the last one we did.
Yeah.
So it's fairly up to date.
We know how many feet need to be replaced. Do you know how many?
I don't know how many linear feet total. That's bad. There's like 3 rankings, it's,
Yeah.
you know.
And then what, 100 grand would get us?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
And a lot of that depends upon how we group it. right? Because really what ends up happening with these guys is the more they hopscotch around, the more they charge you.
Yeah, they do.
So.
And then there's asphalt sidewalk or off. They put that, I know they've talked about that, doing that many times,
Right,
although I don't think it wears well.
I don't recommend we put asphalt in the village.
Yeah, I think the preference of the meetings was cement.
I think we're a community that's used to concrete sidewalks, and I think it would be atrocious.
I think it is. Well, for instance, they ran, like, for instance, up at, for 7-Eleven or whatever they call themselves these days, up there where they transitioned to, it doesn't wear well. It breaks up, and especially in winter, it comes and goes. It's
Yeah,
horrible. Yeah,
Not all
not all of them.
No, yeah.
of it.
Anything that got replaced, yeah, second step,
The big discussion
done that way.
I recollect from the school street days was when the phone company was doing that. The initial presentation was asphalt. So no, if you're tearing up cement, concrete, we want to replace with concrete. So we ended up getting that because some wanted to go with the asphalt. We said no.
Yeah.
That was part of the deal.
Yeah.
The arrangement.
yeah, I don't think it looks right for
Yeah.
what this
It
community,
doesn't, no, it doesn't.
what this community is trying to do. It just
No, you
doesn't
want
look
curb,
right.
you want curb appeal, you're not gonna
Right,
get it with
yeah.
asphalt, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And I was, thinking about, well, for instance, what the underground that GMP is going to be doing. And I think that that's probably the future, because we're working on, my company's working on a project right now that's in Brattleboro. They're gonna be doing underground in the right of way. And
Yeah.
a couple of different streets, and I think because of the intensity of storms as they continue,
Right,
it's actually, in the long run, it's definitely less expensive for them to have underground wire as opposed to have above ground. So it's gonna see, you're
I
gonna see
think
more of
that
that.
depends on geographics, so.
where, like, the island would be hugely expensive, because it's a big hunk of granite, it's like
Going in-
Oh, yeah, you're gonna
Right.
hit a ledge the whole time,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
blasting through rock at the.
Yeah,
incredibly
but you
expensive.
can't, yeah, that's true.
But
But the more that they do, the less service above ground they'll have to
they're
do.
working on, I think they're replacing a lot of cable with these steel reinforced cables, so even though the trees fall on them, they don't break. So they literally hold the cables up.
Mhm.
So service continues, and then somebody comes and they can take the tree off of the cable. I guess they work pretty well,
Yeah, that's good.
so
going underground was very expensive.
I know it is.
it is, yeah. But,
It does cause some less problems in the long run. And that's gonna be part of their thinking. Like I said, they're doing one
yeah,
in Rat.
I like the aesthetics of it, like in our
Oh, yeah.
downtown, I love the way it looks,
Yeah.
so.
Let's see, so I think we've gone way beyond the joint board agenda.
Yeah, well,
We don't have any bills or warrants to review
Nope.
today. That's all. Other business. Let's see, Scott,
nope, all set.
wait,
I'm good, thank you.
Stephen,
Yeah, they're hearing again, like on VPR and stuff, the legislature's talking about, and the federal government is talking about water flow, and then it came up about water flow and hydro. It would be nice if they already aren't, maybe they are, that our representatives are paying attention, because we have a fairly intimate financial relationship, especially with the hydro that we have here in this community, which pays a substantial amount of that, our budget. One part that caught my attention, and I don't hear it all, and I don't understand it all, because I haven't had time to research it, but we're talking about limited flow and it affecting the hydro, and I'm thinking, for me, the layperson, the water comes down, either it goes through under the violets or it goes through the dam, or the hydro station, the generation station, so what's the big deal, you know?
Mhm.
But also that, I know some of the conversation when I looked into it encompassed, water, that's used on farms, et cetera, et cetera. I think we need to pay attention to that, because that
Well,
is a factor, I think, with the element of the hydro there we have.
public comment period for that portion of their relicensing is supposed to start sometime in May.
Mhm.
That seems, so we've been keeping an eye out. As soon as that opens up, we'll make sure that we're
Yeah.
involved. Because there's lots of things that I think we should be commenting on
Yeah,
with the relicensing.
it's been a long time
I mean,
coming. I mean, we've been talking about,
They're a couple
Yeah.
of years behind.
Yeah.
They should be.
we've had a pretty lucrative relationship with the recent owners, where it's been beneficial to both the village and the town. And I mean, it just sounded kind of bizarre, saying, you know, to restrict the flow. I can understand some of it respectively, but, you know, whether it's going through the generation station or going around it, I mean, I'd rather see it going through the generation station than, I just couldn't figure that didn't make good sense to me. And I mean, and hydro's clean, you know, I'm thinking, you know?
Yeah.
Clean power.
Mm.
So the only thing I had was, I thought I might have to try and convince Jigs a little bit more about solar. So I brought The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight by Tom Hartman. Well, I mean, if anybody's read it, it's, you know, it's all about if you plan on living till 2040, and you can watch the end of our ability to use fossil fuels, that's his prediction. But if you don't, I guess you don't care.
It's an uplifting read,
Huh?
very uplifting read.
Uplifting read, yeah.
Okay.
So like Silent Spring, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, if you're invested, or if, and then I'm emotionally invested in solar power, but I'm not financially invested in solar power. There's no money to be made for me. But I do believe it's better, for the community and the state and so on and so forth. I'm not saying we'll make all those marks in 2050, but I do believe everybody needs to do their bit. And if we're reducing our costs, which go on and on for fossil fuels, and those continue to go up, we need to reduce those costs. Well, the way to do that is to make a self-investment, with money that we have, money that we can use the tax dollars, which will pay out in the long run and help our future generations. So that's my thinking, even if I'm not here. But, that's all there is. We have no need for an executive session.
Sorry.
Oh, yes, Betsy.
So I was under the understanding that there is warrants to be signed still, and I guess I didn't check with Brenda to verify that.
She didn't bring me
She
any.
didn't bring us anything to
Last
sign.
week, I thought what we needed to close out the Light Up BF and the town facilities grants was all set, and there was still one payment that we made on a credit card that was like, just needed to be signed off.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I signed off last week's warrants. I haven't seen this week's warrants.
Yeah, so I don't know,
Oh, this is gone, so.
yeah. and I
Yeah,
don't know.
sure.
Worst case, Deb can come in and sign it.
Are you able to
Yeah, just
come
call me.
tomorrow, and then I
I'm in
ask
the village.
Peter to come, and then is that all we need, or you're two?
You just do one signature for each, yes, but when we're here, we sign up, everybody gets to sign, but we only require
And I
one
never
signature
checked
per
with her
board.
today, because I just assumed that
Yeah,
there'd be warrants.
so if that's a need, just let me know. I'll come in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Crisis diverted.
Yes, the press is averted, that's right.
Blood pressure can be reduced. Yeah.
Yes, that's right, don't go crazy. So we need a motion to adjourn. All right, and a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.